Hey everybody, it's springtime. We're talking everything upright piano springs, things that we as technicians run into out in the field. And I'm your host today, Piano Craft. That's what we do. We talk about everything pianos and servicing them. And you're going to come across pianos that just play amazing. These older historic uprights. I know Cobran's run into so many of them. You're like, wow, the touch. It's just chef's kiss. It's perfect. It's light. It's responsive. And a lot of times when people are playing their pianos, they're so used to their pianos, they'll go to the newer pianos and be like, something's off. I'm playing this Yamaha upright. I know I have this historic piano that's on its last legs, but why does my historic older piano feel so much better, so much lighter, so much more just delicate? And a lot of that actually has to do with what we're talking about today, and that is the springs. So there's three main springs in an upright piano. There's three areas that have springs. Can anybody name them off? Don't be shy.
The jack.
Jack springs.
Damper.
Damper lever springs.
Hammer return springs.
Boom. You got these three springs that are all dancing the same dance together. So going back to this, you have your jack spring, which we're missing one in this case. We have your damper lever spring right here. And then we have your hammer return spring. Now, this is one that's integrated within the butt, the hammer butt itself. But with these older uprights, they're going to have another rail right here called the spring rail. And that rail will house the springs that then touch the hammer butt right here. But this is one of those integrated systems. So you have three main areas of springs in the piano. And we as technicians are able to manipulate the tension on those quite a bit. And welcome, Jacob. I'm sure Jacob knows a lot about springs. So technicians we're not there to just tune a piano. We're there to unlock what a piano can do. I was privileged enough to meet a technician for Horowitz, and his name is Franz Moore. And I got to ask him a question, and he's known as like one of the best technicians in the world, and he was just great. And so I asked him, like, how did you get that reputation? He's like, he's known as like one of the greatest technicians in the world ever to exist. And he's like, he has this, I don't know if it's like a German or Austrian voice. He's like, I'm not the best because of my tuning, but essentially I got recognition because I was able to understand what Maestro, he called Horowitz, Maestro wanted from the piano. And that is a big thing. That's really the only thing. That's what you need to know. What are your customers saying to you, and how do you translate that into unlocking that from the piano? And a lot of times you're going to be able to find that the spring tension is one of those things that will help unlock the potential within the piano. What do I mean? Let's take a new piano example. We, over at Classic Pianos, when I was working with them, became like a Charles Walter dealer. Charles Walter is an American handmade piano being produced today. And
yeah, in Indiana, 2 hours north of me.
In Indiana, that's right. They have like all new, all runner action parts, just amazing. But there was something going on with the uprights. Why do these things play like a tank? And so it wasn't until we did more sleuthing that we kind of figured out what was going on and the reason it is. The Charles Walter upright's a beautiful instrument, and especially once you do this repair, it's that much better. But the Charles Walter upright made this massive slant to the bass strings. And they did that to make it so that the bass strings were bigger, therefore they got a bigger tone. And so in order to silence such a big string and such a big tone, they only have so much damper felt to work with. What did they do? They increased the repetition lever spring to a in my opinion, ridiculous level. So what should be a nice kind of gentle, pushing against the string was insane. Like, ugh. And where does the player feel that?
In the pedal?
They feel it,
Nope.
yeah, kind of in the pedal.
In the touch as well, because the back of the key is going to lift that damper.
Exactly it. They felt it right in the touch. And especially in that bass, it's like, ugh, carpal tunnel city. It was rough. And so
I'm sure that made quite a change when playing with and without the pedal, just the down weight, playing with and without the pedal.
100%. That's exactly right, Coburn. So when I was like playing them, and I'm a heavy pedaler, like I like to go into dream state with the damper pedal going, and so I'm like, it's not so bad. But then when I let go of that pedal, I'm like falling forward because it was so heavy. So what we ended up doing, and it's something that we do a lot to help the pianos play, that much more delicately or lighter, is we, using our heart spring tool, again, this is the tool that we highly recommend for this, is we take the action out like so and simply remove each of these springs. And so we would go ahead and they would be like this. So here's where the neighboring one is more of a normal spring. You can kind of see the difference. You have this one poking way out, and then this one kind of poking just a little bit because there's not as much, twist in it or a bend in it. So we would simply take these springs and bend them backwards so that they were all in a certain line. And that's how we would gauge, is we would go and test it out and be like, okay, let's make it so that they're all, an inch away from the top here. Okay, we can easily do that. That way we have a uniform look, or a uniform feel. So that's the way that we would do it. And then we would test it. Yep, that's what we want to feel. I actually don't know, and Jacob, maybe you would know, is there an actual weight that it's supposed to have, or no?
No, actually, I was thinking the same thing when I heard about this class, that I honestly, like, there's not even a spec for grand pianos, so there's not really, I don't know, it's almost a feel,
Yeah.
than anything else. So
And that being said, we do come across people that they're like, wow, I feel like my piano is just way too light. I wish there was more of a weight to it. Bing, bing, bing. What do? One of the things we can do is take these all out, bend them down so that there's more pressure against that lever, against that string, and therefore there's more pressure when you play the notes. So this is one thing you're absolutely, as technicians, able to manipulate to unlock what your customer is wanting. Not all customers want a bright piano. Not all customers want a light piano. It's so varied. These are the tips and tricks that you need to learn and need to engage with that makes it so that you can do whatever for whatever customer. And I've done both, where I've made it lighter doing this trick, where I'm loosening the spring tension, or I've made it way heavier and increasing that tension on these damper levers. Customers happy. What did you do? Didn't have to weigh it off or anything. Just a simple bending of these springs. I'm trying to think, how can I even... I don't know if you're like this, Jacob, or not, or you, Cobra, you see a lot of pianos. One of my ways that I gauge what a piano should kind of feel like is I kind of look at Yamaha. Yamaha is pretty dialed in. And so I'm kind of like, if I go and I'm like, okay, well, what does this Yamaha, feel like? Okay, feels about like that much pressure. Okay, that can replicate that usually with some fair amount of success. And
Yamaha has the advantage of being very consistent throughout everything. Their U line is just impeccably the same. So I agree. Going through and kind of feeling how that is, it's a
Yeah.
good baseline.
Is a good baseline. It's a good baseline to see how deep they're setting the key dip. Is it a little bit proud of 10 millimeters? Is it a little bit shallow? Is it they're it's ridiculous. I don't know if you've ever ordered like strings from Yamaha, but they like pre-stretch them and they cut them so that you don't even have to cut the bass strings. They're like
Really?
exactly where they should be.
That's amazing. I gotta try that.
Really cool. At least they did back when I was ordering, a lot of those. It was pretty fantastic.
As long as they answer my phone calls, then I'll do it.
Oh, no promises there.
Yeah.
So, any questions about the rep lever, the rep lever springs? Does that make sense?
It does. I have a question. So the spring adjusts the tension, the feel, and the spoon adjusts the timing versus the tension?
Yes. Here, let me see if I can get a good angle of this. Yes, exactly, Robert. So when you press on the note, it's so hard to do this when I'm like looking at you and this. So yeah, basically, I'm really failing at this. Let's do this view. Yeah, the teeter-totter. So the key, it's pressed down and it pushes upwards. Actually, it's this side, but it presses the hammer to the string. And you're right, it's exactly it. This spoon adjusts the timing of when this lever gets off of the string. And so there's two things when we're talking about dampers. There's overall lift, and then there's timing. So when we're talking about lift, we're talking about just the lift with the damper pedal. Are they all moving exactly the same, at the same rate and same engagement? And then timing is at what point in the key stroke is that damper lifting off? What's the kind of a standard measurement for that lift off? Anybody?
About 1/3.
About 1/3, 1/2. That's another thing as we as technicians can manipulate though too. Some people are like, hey, I want to just push the envelope. I don't want to feel anything until the very last bit. So sometimes I'll adjust those spoons so that they're lifting right at the very edge. And so, or they want it to feel that much heavier. Engage that spoon earlier with that lever and make it so that they're feeling that throughout the keystroke. All these things.
Yeah,
So
in the
that
same
spoon
way.
kind of
In the same way, that's going to affect the touch, depending on the timing of it is going to affect where the weight is going to feel.
Yeah.
Spring strength is going to affect it a lot quicker. If you're trying to do something quickly, do the spring strength first. Spoons take a little bit longer, I think, but I don't know. Some people are really fast
so
with that too.
the spring is going to affect the touch almost exclusively, but the spoons affect both the timing as well as the touch.
Yeah.
And when are you going to get that touch differential has to do with where you set that timing.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, the touch is the symptom. It does affect the timing is what you're adjusting, and then the touch is the symptom. It's what you get after that. So
right.
Yeah, that's really true. Sometimes you're going to run across pianos that will have this issue. It's fairly rare, but sometimes you will have pianos where there's, this note is not resetting at all. The jack is not resetting. And when you go to look at it, you'll actually see that there's a jack spring missing. That's fairly rare. I don't know about you, Coburn, but I find that that's pretty rare that it's missing. More often than not, it's broken. It's like half of it's gone.
I haven't seen that yet.
That even half of it's gone?
No, that it's just missing.
Yeah, I've only seen it like 4 times. I don't know. Jakey, what about you? Have you ever seen it missing?
Just maybe a couple times to my memory.
And to be fair, there's still a little bit of a residue, like it's sheared off flush. So you can see in the little canal that there's still some residue of what existed before. So in some cases, oh my gosh, in some cases you'll have to fully replace that spring. I like to use just simple tweezers, and a little bit of tacky glue. Why tacky glue? Anybody?
Gives you a long working time.
That's true. Gives you a long work.
Because David can find it at the craft store.
Yeah, it's true. I like it because it's kind of in the name. It stays kind of tacky. It doesn't get hard and cracky. It just kind of has a little bit of a spongy feel. And because of that spring moving, I didn't want anything to creak. So I've had good success with using this. I think other people use like PVC glue. But again, what Joel said, David can find this at Michael's pretty easily. And so, yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll literally just put a little dab. And by the way, they sell these little bottles on Amazon, and they're great because they're just, you don't have like this big old tube that you have to do it. But you can put a little bit of tacky glue and then put the spring in fairly easily and just let it sit. That is something that you will have to do from time to time. But most of the time, what you're having to do is just re-engage the springs by just simply pinching them and putting them back into place. Or you will find that half of these are missing. Half the spring, if you have a spring that's supposed to be 1 1/4 inches, half of it's gone because it's broken off. I usually, in this case, will simply try to bend the very top of it so that it's finer. Because if you look at that spring, it kind of tapers as it gets close to where it sits underneath that, underneath the jack. So what I'll do is I'll pinch the very end that's broken, so it's in a smaller, more rounded circle, and then I'll lift up on the spring, lifting it up to where it should be, and that brings tension to the spring and allows this jack to actually work. That's more of a fix that is, man, I do not have a spring with me. The customer doesn't want to pay for anything. That is that fix. Jacob, have you ever had to do that?
Yeah, I think so. It's one of those. Sometimes, I mean, it doesn't take much to replace it. So often, I'll charge maybe $5 so I don't even have to do that because I'd rather just do it right. But
so you have the springs with you all the time, then?
Yeah, I do.
Jacob's just one of those good technicians. I'll just say it. He's one of those good technicians that's well supplied, is what it is.
My car is full of supplies. Yes.
Coburn, do you have jack springs with you at any given time by chance?
I do not.
Okay, phew. It's not just me. No, but Jacob's right. I mean, it would take less time to go ahead and just replace the spring than to go ahead and massage it up and bring it up to play. But a lot of times I'll either not have a spring with me or something like that. And so there's two ways. Better way, replace it. Not so great way, but it actually does fix it, is to actually just elongate that spring. Victor has been doing something lately where he's actually increasing the spring tension just on all the pianos. Not all the pianos, but if he's doing a service, he'll go through and just elongate these springs to bring it so that it has more tension, and then just put them underneath the jacks again. And he's done that. So a lot of times he said with these consoles, because a lot of times that spring can lose its tension, and therefore that jack isn't resetting as quickly or as consistently. That's a really cool thing. I've actually never done that as a service, but Victor is saying that he's had really good success with that. Jacob, Coburn, have either of you done that? I've really never done that before.
I have not, but I think an alternative to that would be to use ProTech on the jack centers as an alternative.
Okay.
David, on my old Thompson, I had to go through and stretch a lot of those springs because of age. So
yeah.
So on the old uprights, 100-year-old uprights, you're going to see that where the springs are there, they're underneath the jack, but they don't have enough tension. So you're having to stretch them and
stretch them. It's just so
Get
that
them to work better.
yeah.
I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with Wessel Nickel Gross and their modern composite or carbon fiber parts, but I did speak with them a few times, wondering if the springs could be replaced with repelling magnets, and we have yet to see if they will implement that in their production. I think it would be kind of cool.
It would be kind of cool. Just put magnets everywhere. There was a piano that was doing more of that. What was it? I cannot remember. They were using magnets. Was it the key level?
I know Bechstein has a bunch of those right now.
Was that
Is that true?
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, so I would say that jack spring equally is important, you know, and you can manipulate that. I find that usually I'm manipulating instead of what Victor's doing, where he's, again, it's a different thing. But I think that that's a great idea to increase that tension there so that it allows that jack to reset easier. But then the last spring that we can adjust and manipulate is the hammer return spring right here.
So Coburn does bring up a good point, though. Making sure that the action center, the pinning is correct on either side, on all of these actually, is important to check first before you're adjusting the spring strength.
That's true. And would you do that by simply removing, I don't know, this is how I've done it before, but by moving that spring and then just kind of feeling if it's moving or not?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. This actually brings up another good point. So that is a good point, to make sure that there isn't any friction within the pinning itself. Another thing, going back to the damper lever springs, this is a real source of friction and noise. You see, there's this little channel that these springs are supposed to seat into. You see that? In some pianos, you're going to see some kind of a felt there. Other pianos like this, and Yamahas especially, there won't be any kind of a felt. It'll be wood just be sitting in wood that's painted like with a graphite. This can cause squeaking, creaking. And so a lot of times what we have to do is remove the spring like so, dab a little bit of that grease on there and put it back. And we've had to do that so quite a few Yamaha uprights, because when they're using the pedal, it kind of makes this weird kind of a creak. You could hear all those 60 or whatever springs rubbing against it.
That happens quite a bit, actually.
Does it happen quite a bit to you down there? I didn't know if it was a Northwest thing or not.
Yeah, it does. And I think it happens more often where it doesn't have the felt there.
Yes.
But yeah, that definitely using a grease, using Protec, that's gonna be a permanent thing for decades again.
Yeah,
so.
Your kids will have to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but that's something to keep in mind too, and it's regarding the springs as well. Now, the hammer return springs, I don't feel like I've actually never done a lot to this style of springs. I mean, we were showing, was it earlier in the week or last week, that we were replacing these flanges. But when it comes to the springs, I'm with these never really adjusting them that much. It's only with the old uprights that have like zero tension on them that I'm moving those springs out and then increasing that tension on those springs. But for the most part, I'm not ever really doing a lot with these. Am I alone there, Jacob, Coburn? What are your?
I 100% agree. It's usually something with pinning again, right there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hardly touching them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more with these older uprights, and a lot of what we're talking about is the older uprights. That will just have no friction to them, not friction, no weight to them. But you're right that we do need to make sure that there's no friction, unwanted friction somewhere. So that just like that spring kind of creaking along that damper lever, there's friction right there. The flanges can have pinning issues, friction there. There's so many little points of friction, and but yeah, it's good to get that lined out so that you know that there's no issues right there before you go into some of these other treatments, if you will.
Or worse, verdigris on the action centers.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about verdigris before. So I've seen it primarily with Steinways. I don't know if other. I mean,
What's verdigris?
say it again.
What is verdigris?
As far as I can tell, it was a product that's, especially Steinway, had that they used to lubricate the pins at some point in the past.
Okay.
Forward decades later, and it's almost this brownish, greenish, blackish sludge.
Yeah, I know what that is. Okay.
Yeah, verdigris. Is it? Am I right there, Coburn? Is that how you would define it?
I thought it was the wood of the flange was like it was treated, and the treatment of the wood would like leach into the center, into the center pin bushing, and that would react with oxygen and then just turn into this to the green verdigris.
Okay, so it
build
wasn't
up.
necessarily a solution that they put on the pin or the bushing. It was more of what they actually had with the wood itself.
Yeah, and then so like you could try to repin, but then there's still that solution. There's still the sealant in the wood, and so it's just going to come back later.
Yeah, and
it seizes up all the action parts to where they don't move at all.
we've done repinning on verdigris actions, and it lasted about 5 years. But then they just had us repin it again because they're like, well, it's cheaper than the cost of all new Steinway action parts. So, but we found that it lasted about 5 years, and we pinned them loose. You know what I mean? Because we were like, I don't know how long this is gonna last. So they were happy with it for about 5 years.
I know Supply 88 is selling Vertigon, a solution that they're finding that works on getting rid of it. I'm not sure, since it's pretty new, I'm not sure what it's like.
Okay.
That's good branding.
Next week, so maybe I'll talk to Don and Mark about that. Vertigon, is that really what it's called? Oh, I love it. Steinway.
I don't run into that very often.
You don't run into that very often. Okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
I saw it mostly in Seattle.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and I've only really seen it in Steinways, so I don't know.
Yeah, I've only seen it in Steinways, but I don't see it very often. And I wonder if humidity makes a big difference because we're dry out here, so I don't know.
That very well could be.
I don't know.
Yeah. Oh well. Questions about springs. Does this make sense? I literally was planning on putting Piano gods are smiling at me right now. I was gonna install this spring, but then I dropped it, and then it went to the abyss. It is this dark concrete floor. But let's go ahead and just glue this in place.
Surprised you didn't kick it halfway across the store.
I know. I lost my wallet earlier today, and it's just like I'm in this losing things mode right now, which I'm sure Stacy can tell me what that means, because it's always some other thing, right? Stacy's laughing.
Yeah, we can talk about that later.
It's probably a deep issue that I'm having with my mom or something like that. No. So again, I like using this tacky glue. It works really well for this. Jacob, what kind of glue do you use when you're actually replacing them?
So I've used rubber cement before, kind of for the same reason, that I want a little bit of a flex.
Yeah.
Because I want it to move, but I want it to stay there as well. So I've used rubber cement. It stinks, so I don't like to use it, but that's what I've used in the past. Often though, I've not put glue. That's probably not a good scenario, but that's that is something that I've done.
I like that. I've not put glue.
Do
Yeah,
you have an opinion on, or I actually have never really thought about it, but I know that there's two different types of upright jack screws or springs. There's this kind, and then there's the kind that you're installing right now.
yes.
What is the difference? Is there a difference? Is it
Yeah.
just length?
No, so what smarter minds than me have been able to explain it better than me and show it to me. But
Because I've never known, so I don't know.
I don't feel like there's any difference, by the way. Let me just set that out there. The thing just has to move like fraction of a little bit. It doesn't make a big difference. But the way that it was kind of told to me is that supposedly isn't putting as much pressure on the metal because of the way it's designed, and so they'll last longer. That's what I've been told, and I don't know if that's true. I mean, they look cooler, I guess. They look cool.
Generally, I'll just replace what looks closest to original.
100%.
So generally, that means the type that you're installing,
Yeah.
and not these.
Yeah, I don't even know
occasionally.
pianos have those.
Yeah, I can't remember it. I've run into it a couple times, but it's not very common.
No, and that's a good point, because I'm a big proponent in putting back as close to what was there, even to the point of being a little OCD when it comes to like, oh, I need to replace a shank in this upright. I'll go and like dirty it up or go and stain it and make it look distressed like the other shanks.
Nice.
I have a problem. I have an intervention here.
You ever worked on a Vienna action?
Yeah. Are you talking about
Yeah.
Viennese action?
Yeah, the Viennese actions where I had to replace all the vellum for the jacks and everything. It was fun. But speaking of like putting
What's your definition of fun?
Yeah, no kidding. You're a glutton for punishment. No, I see those and I'm like,
I have no defense.
I have no defense. Yeah, you're gonna run across like historic pianos, weird pianos that are just like these in between eras. I ran across one piano where I might get there and I couldn't even tune it because the tuning pins were like this, like rectangle, long rectangle, and I didn't have a tuning hammer that would fit it.
Funny enough, somebody had talked about this on the PTG forums about there's a certain old classic piano that had a specific type of head for the tuning pins, and normally that hammer was left with the piano because it was different, and that hammer had gotten taken, and he didn't have a hammer to tune the piano because of the tuning pins were a unique tuning pin.
You might run across this spring. That's so funny you said it because it brings up another one. And I did come across a piano that was very unique. I had never seen one. And it did have a special tool sitting right next to it. It was an upright. Yes, Jacob, he knows what I'm doing. It's called a screw stringer. And so instead of having a tuning pin that is, the string is wound and you tighten it, it has a little screw that is attached to the string, and you will loosen or tighten the screw to raise or lower the pitch. God help you if you break one of those little attachment fingers. Right?
Totally.
You break one?
No, but I was thinking the same thing.
Mason Hamlin is what used it. I think it was Mason. They experimented with it.
Exactly, yeah.
And you cannot find, you see that, you just say, no charge for today. I'm probably not your technician. May God be with you. I will see you later. May the games be in your favor. Yeah, because you just can't, it's not that, oh, if a string breaks, it's a problem. And yeah, it kind of is. But it's the mechanism, the screw mechanism are prone to breaking. And when they do, you just can't find anything like that to fix it. But I kind of did want to try, but my mentor was like, "Hey, just get out of there." I'm like, okay. He was like, "Just get out of here. I don't want to fix your mistake, David. So get out."
Yeah, I was thinking what it would be fun to, like, if a string breaks because it needed a pitch raise, it was very flat. Like, it might be fun to string this, but probably not.
Probably not.
I
No,
lucked out.
I found that early in my career as a serving technician, I was way more like open to doing it. I think I had this, I don't necessarily know, I don't think it was this inflated view of myself. I think it was more just, I need to eat today. I can fix this. I'll work on this. Is what it really was. So just so you know, you can go without food for a day from time to time, but breaking a screw string or piano or breaking something, it's never works out in the long run. So that's boy, there's flashbacks there. Yeah.
Can I show you a jack spring and ask for y'all's analysis?
Yes.
This is 100-year-old. It kind of bows out to 1914. It sort of bows in instead of scrunches. And this is the middle C, and it doesn't return very well. So is that a replacement? Would you replace that? You see how it kind of bows in? I mean, it's got some tension in it, but is it supposed to scrunch down, or is that typical bowing like that?
I've never seen it bow that much. It almost feels like it's been replaced by a spring that's too big.
I think that's right. I think it is a replacement.
Yeah, I mean, it's way up there, and sometimes it doesn't escape under the, under the jack. It just it gets stuck.
Robert, if you disengage that spring, does that jack move freely, or is there friction there? If you take the spring out, or disengage it from the top of that jack, does the jack feel like it's really loose and nice and easy to move?
Yeah,
okay.
It's pretty. Yeah, it goes. It just seems like, say, too big, and it kind of bows in, so it's not really returning. And sometimes it'll get stuck under there. It will not pop out because it'll almost go too far.
Yeah.
Am I seeing it right? Is there still a lot of steel there at the bottom for the spring? Is there a lot?
Put your
looks like a little piece of felt.
Okay, that's what I'm saying is the felt.
So we can see. Yeah.
But yeah, it does look like it's too large to me compared to what I've seen on the old ones.
But it's not touching. It's not touching the flange. It's right.
No, but normally you would see it bow the opposite direction. At least what I've seen.
Yeah, it's bowing in, and then sometimes it'll pop out of the top here, and then it looks like that. See how it goes too far, and then it comes out of the little socket in the top there too. So that's the issue that I've seen with these 2 or 3. It's just not returning. Well, I don't know if it's original 100-year-old. It's a 1914 piano.
Yeah.
With the long sticker.
Yeah, I don't know. That one is kind of a weird one because it's not fully touching anything causing an issue.
But the spring definitely is not reacting like I would expect it to.
Yeah.
So even you wouldn't really pull that out and make it, increase the tension.
I would almost try to compress it a little bit down at the base.
I thought
put more down toward the base.
Okay.
Yeah, and so is it not repeating
it's middle C. It's not repeating well, and it looks like it pops out of the top, or the jack just doesn't release. You have to flip it out sometimes, and that might be a separate issue. But I don't know if that's all the spring or not. But it's just 2 or 3 keys like that. I'm hoping it's just a spring issue where I can adjust it. But it doesn't look like it's doing the right thing because it keeps bowing in instead of scrunching up and down.
Yeah, if it were me, no. If I were in this situation, not recommending you do this, but if it was me, what I would be doing is actually, because I don't like that much extra spring, I would snip off a 1/4 inch, twist the area so it's a little bit tighter, and then probably glue it a little bit to the top so that it's not coming out. That's what I would try to do if it were mine. But again,
Okay.
it's
Yeah,
kind
I thought about snipping it. You have to tighten that top though, right here, to tighten that to make it fit in the socket. You know, you're going to have to tighten the top part of the spring, right?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
get it to fit in. Okay.
Knows that's exactly it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is the $300 job for a friend, but it's given me great experience, and he's flexible. It's like, I'm in no hurry. Take your time.
One of the things you can do is whenever you have a weird issue, as technicians, one easy thing we can do is look at everything that the neighboring notes are doing, and if they're not causing an issue. Okay, wait, the weird thing is, oh yeah, that spring is different than the one I'm working on. Okay. Or wow, that's tighter or looser than the one I'm working on. So sometimes that's helpful for me if I'm like, hey, I do not know what's going on. I'll go to the neighboring note to see, okay, it's working really well. What is different? And then the process of elimination.
So does a bad jack cause the spring not to kick out, to cause this this jack not to kick out if the spring is goofed up? Because that's the problem I'm finding, is the spring's not kicking out when you push up on from the whipping.
Well, then
sometimes it gets too far under there.
The question is it letting off? So that'd be one question.
Yeah.
It's like, is it letting off properly? Yes, it's letting off 1/8 of an inch from the string. Great. Because we want that jack to kick out.
Yeah, the spring is there to return it back underneath the hammer again.
So we want let off to go, and then boom, that jack kicks out. Are you saying, Robert, that it's not doing that?
It's not kicking out.
Okay, so I would look at the let off.
Okay.
And also double check your capstan on the key to make sure that you have some movement there. If it's too high, then it's not going to return even after let off.
Yeah, we won't have any lost motion. We want a little bit of lost motion.
China a little bit.
Okay. Just a tiny bit.
And then we also want to make sure that there's aftertouch, so that escapement. So again, whenever we're talking aftertouch, there's 3 adjustments: let off, blow distance, and key dip. Again, we are going into the woods with this $300 job, Robert, but this is great training.
He just wants it to return.
I have found some issues sometimes, and I'm not sure this might be the case, but the green felt on the top of the jack might be like too puffed up. That could be an issue, and it's hitting the jack. There's a jack stop rail.
Yeah,
sometimes
that's true too. Another thing to keep in mind is sometimes I had this literally the other day. That's funny you mentioned it. Is if we're looking at this jack right there, there's 2. But the one that I had was causing issues. That felt that the jack is resting on. Gee whiz, come on. That red felt, you see how it flops on, it's on the butt of the hammer, was missing. So I had to add that felt because it was clicking and it was setting, because that felt wasn't there, that jack was pushed way too far and it wasn't spaced out. So I added that red felt to it, and that has helped solve it. So keep in mind that those felts definitely need to be in place. Not only will they create clicks, but also that weird misfire or heaviness in the note.
Okay, thanks.
Good times.
Yeah, there's plenty to do.
No, it's really good to get these jobs like what you're doing, Robert, because you will learn so much. You'll learn so much in a matter of days on working on something like that. And there's nothing else like just hands-on. You know, a lot of you have gone through the PTA course, and that's great because it gives you the theory, gives you an understanding, gives you terminology. And even these, it's nice to kind of show things, but boy, when you have it in your hand and you're spending time and sweating and bleeding over it, that's where you really get to learn about it. And yes, bleeding over it, because, yeah.
Okay, one last question then. For the ivories, not plastic key tops. He's got ivories, and I've got some old ivories.
Yeah,
Is this the glue for ivories?
I've used that before.
Okay.
What does it say, thin or thick?
That's medium. I've got thin and medium.
Yeah, I always use medium or thick when I'm using. Make sure. I already told you like my horror stories with using that glue, so just be sure to be careful with that stupid stuff, because I got a little bit on my finger and I didn't realize I had it still on there, and I went to rub my eye and I glued my eyelashes together shut. So don't do that. But sometimes you won't realize that some is still on your fingers.
What I found was tricky was getting the key centered and get the clamp on there without ooch to the side. It's like, man, you get it on there and then you're off a little bit, and you want to try and get it set before it dries.
In theory, you won't need a clamp. I don't ever use clamps when I'm using the glue. I just kind of, but you are right. It is you get one quick try to get it on there pretty quickly. And do you have the zap kicker with that stuff, or is it just the glue itself?
Just the glue itself.
Yeah, that'll give you like maybe 20 seconds to shift it around, as long as you don't use that zip kicker.
Yeah, the zip kicker, you got a minute, you got a second and a half.
As soon as you spray it, it will set. It causes the chemical reaction to happen right away. Do you guys use that same for plastic, or do you use PVC?
I use it for plastic too, but I don't use as much. I'm really careful, and I don't use the kicker because I don't trust it to not catch on fire. I don't know.
Yeah.
But whenever you're doing it also, especially when you use a kicker, keep your face away from it. One time I was really close and I was like doing something, I sprayed it and it like started to like, because it has a chemical reaction. My eyes hurt for the rest of the day because I got some of what that was in my eye. Just the smoke.
Yeah, you need well-ventilated area while doing that.
Yeah.
So alternatively, if you wanted to have more set time, but also more time for error, I do like using, I either use just straight PVCE and then just rubber bands. And then I'll start the appointment. By the end of the appointment, I'm able to remove the rubber bands and put it back. Or you can do PVCE and then just a few dots of super glue as a clamp. And that, in combination with the PVCE, acts as a zip kicker or whatever to accelerate that chemical reaction. And then it holds it there for the PVCE to cure.
That's a good trick. That's kind of a woodworker's trick right there. Yeah, that's a brilliant.
Hey, Jacob, have you ever used like blue painter's tape as a clamp?
I have. I've run into problems where I'll get it in places where I don't want it to be, where it'll kind of like get underneath a corner and then it's there forever and it's blue. Yeah. So it's really obvious. With rubber bands, it kind of self-centers and then I can just cut it off if I don't really want to like unwrap it. I can just take a knife and slice it open and then I'm good to go. So I prefer rubber bands, but yeah, that's just another way of doing it.
That's good. I like these sessions because we can kind of have a topic, but there's so many avenues to go. Springs to glues to regulation to injuries to everything. So it's definitely a free for all, and I love that. That's what it's real. Springs are available, and chaff. I think other places sell them too. Chaff is the place that we usually get them all. So make sure you budget a couple $100 for shipping a bag of springs. So, zing! Sorry, chaff. Sorry, not sorry.
Which type of spring did you say lasted longer? The one Jacob was showing us that was thick in the middle? I mean, Howard sells those and they call them vertical springs.
That's what the NASA engineer guy was telling me. I don't know if it's, sure.
Yeah, I would just buy the standard one first if you're going to pick one of the two.
They do look kind of cool, though. They do look kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I would just get the standard. I've never had an issue with getting the standard kind and it being like, oh man, I wish I would have gotten that weird one. So for Friday, I might be out, but we might be able to figure out another thing for Friday because I have a birthday party. So I will see you on Monday for sure. And I would like to talk with Mark Perney about some of his new things that he's working on. So it'd be fun for next week to do a Supply 88 if Mark and Don are available for that. But if I don't see you on Friday, I will see you on Monday, and we'll kind of go from there. Is there any other questions regarding springs or anything else as we sign off? No? Well, have a great weekend. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, I think that David had a question. I'm going to try to respond to that in the feed. So if anybody has any questions, I'll try to do better about answering some of these questions. All right. Keep it real. I'll see you.
Have a fun birthday. See you.
I'll see ya.
Thanks.